Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to do a kind of fun little tag today. I wasn't actually tagged, but that's fine. I'm gonna do it anyway. I thought it might be fun to do the anything but books tag, which was apparently created by booktuber Reader Rot, so all credits go to them. But I actually found this tag through the blog ZZ with Books, so I will link that page below. But without further ado, let's get into the tag. So I suppose the concept of this tag is just to talk about things that are not book related, which I've been doing more on my channel recently, but I thought it would just be fun to answer these kind of cute and fun and silly questions because why not? Oh yes, and I wanted to mention that I am wearing Ariel Bissette's I'm Thinking About Books sweater because I want it to be a little bit cheeky, and since we're not supposed to be talking about books in this video, I'm going to make it clear that I am still thinking about books. So the first question in the tag is name a cartoon you love. So I am kind of counting this as a cartoon even though it is more of just an animated show, though I don't know exactly where the line between cartoon and animated show is. I suppose if you know, you can fill me in the comments. But I would say my favorite animated show is Gravity Falls. I watched Gravity Falls for the first time through when I was maybe 18. I know it came out when I was younger, but in reality, I really did not have many opportunities to watch cartoons. I was really not allowed to watch stereotypical cartoons as a kid. And I'm not even mad at that because I feel like I ended up watching a lot of other documentaries and educational stuff. I suppose if you want to call Schoolhouse Rock a cartoon, that would be my favorite from my childhood. I have a lot of nostalgic memories of watching Schoolhouse Rock as a kid, so maybe that's more akin to what the question is asking, but I guess I didn't think about it that way until just now. But I did really love Schoolhouse Rock, and later on I did really enjoy Gravity Falls. Those are my two favorite animated cartoon shows, whatever you want to call it. Okay, moving right along, the second question is what is your favorite song right now? So I am somebody who struggles to pinpoint what my top favorite song is at any given time, because usually I have several, and they're not always in the same genre either. So my first favorite song right now is Low by Chet Faker, which is very different, I suppose, than what I would consider my usual wheelhouse of music. I consider myself someone who listens to a lot of folk and alternative, but I just looked it up. Chet Faker is considered, well, alternative / indie. That's the other one. I do listen to a lot of indie music as well, but he's also considered soul, so it's a bit different than the other stuff that I listen to. I work at a coffee shop currently, and we always have a Pandora station playing. So just with different people being scheduled, we listen to different music because usually whoever gets there first picks the music. And a lot of the time I pick the music, but one of my coworkers had introduced me to a couple of different stations where a lot of soul and R&B and stuff like that had been played, and I kind of really liked it, so I've been sort of adopting that into my current music situation. So the first favorite song that I have right now is Low by Chet Faker. I also am really liking Banks by Need to Breathe. So Need to Breathe is an interesting kind of story for me because Need to Breathe is the only quote-unquote Christian band that has lingered from the days where that's mostly what I listen to. I don't really listen to that music anymore, so it is interesting that Need to Breathe is coming up as a favorite band of mine right now, or at least a favorite song of mine right now. And I think it really just plays into the kind of music it is. It's very soothing, it's very calming, and I would say that a significant portion of their music feels very secular, even though they're kind of walking this line between secular and Christian band. So either way, I really like their sound. I think it's very, like I said, it's very calming, it's very relaxing, it's very uplifting in a lot of ways. So Banks by Need to Breathe has been a go-to for me recently. And then the final one is more random, but it still sort of fits into the genre that I usually listen to, and it's called Only for You by Heartless Bastards. I've never listened to anything else by them before, and I probably will at this point, but that has been a favorite song of mine and I've been playing it constantly. So very long-winded explanation, but those are the songs that I'm currently obsessed with. All right, moving right along to question number 3. It is, what is something you could do for hours that's not reading? So, okay, I find myself, when I'm not reading, I find myself spending most of my time planning and organizing. And that may sound incredibly boring to some people, but if you're one of those people, I'm sorry, you just don't get it. You don't get me. I am very much someone who loves to plan and loves to organize. And when I am not reading, if I have spare time, I usually am either journaling, I am planning something or writing lists for myself, I am planning content ahead, or I am reorganizing things / organizing things. Currently my room is in chaos, so part of me feels like my mind is in chaos because things are not organized, but also the satisfaction of organizing things to put into boxes and organizing things before I move them is also very satisfying to me. So it's kind of a weird dynamic that's happening right now. But I really, really genuinely love organizing things, and I love planning things, and I love writing lists for myself, and I could spend hours upon hours upon hours doing those things if given the opportunity. So, like I said, it might sound boring, but that's just how I am. All right, question number 4. What is something that you love to do that your followers might be surprised by? So this one was kind of hard for me to come up with because the kind of content that I do involves a lot of discussion of more personal stuff like my interests, as well as sometimes doing reading vlogs, which you're seeing what I'm interested in doing. And I will say too that a lot of my interests and pursuits are more of the quiet, domestic variety, I would say. So cooking and shopping and walking around little cute small towns and going to coffee shops and reading, of course, even though we're not supposed to be talking about that in this video. Those are the majority of my favorite things to do, but none of those things are surprising. So the only thing I could really come up with is I love to rollerblade, and I may have mentioned it a few times on my channel, but it's not something that I talk about a lot because it doesn't fit into the rest of the interests that I have, which again are very quiet and kind of introverted things or restful things as opposed to active things. I'm not somebody who loves active pursuits like sports or anything like that. But I do really like roller skating. Well, rollerblading. I have rollerblades, not skates. So whether or not that's surprising and fits that prompt exactly, that's what I could come up with because I feel like y'all already know what I'm interested in and it's kind of boring. All right, question number 5. What is your favorite unnecessarily specific thing to learn about? So this is interesting because I feel like there are several, but the one that came to mind first is the one I'm going to talk about, which is cults. So I am fascinated by all things cults. I definitely like to read about that, of course, but I also really like watching shows about it, watching YouTube videos about it, just learning about it in other ways as well. And specifically cults of the like Christian adjacent variety. I think other kinds of like spiritual cults or other types of cults are interesting as well, but I'm definitely the most interested in like Christian adjacent cults. So things like fundamentalist Mormonism and things like that. I am so fascinated about that and I love learning about that. So very random and specific, but very interesting to me, and I love learning about it because it's really interesting to try to get into the psyche of someone who's in a cult. All right, question number 6. What is something unusual you know how to do? So I was trying to come up with something really unusual, and again, I feel like my skills and interests are pretty, I don't know if they're necessarily boring, I guess. They're just more expected from me. They're not like crazy, wild, random interests or experiences. But one thing that might be slightly unusual that I know how to do is I'm pretty decent at identifying mushrooms. And to give you some context, I was homeschooled and I did a lot of kind of different projects through 4-H and through different homeschool activities. And one of the big projects that I did as a kid was a mushroom identification and preservation collection box. So what I would do is I would go forage for mushrooms, and then I would dry them in silica gel, and I would mount them on a board and identify them, and I presented the finished collection at the county fair and then the state fair. So that being said, I still remember quite a bit about identifying mushrooms. And if I see a mushroom out in the wild, I'll likely remember what it is and be able to identify it. Though don't ask me to identify mushrooms that you're planning on eating, because there are lots of mushroom species that look a lot like other mushroom species that are deadly. So you have to make sure that if you're going to eat mushrooms, you have someone who is really an expert identifying them for you. So I'm not that good, but I can just casually identify mushrooms. All right, moving right along. Question number 7. Name something you've made in the last year. So for my mom's birthday last year, I made her this bag, and I had to order the fabric specially because it is kind of a unique fabric, but it's this seahorse print bag, and it has like very long straps. It's more of like a tote bag type of situation. So yeah, I made this for my mom last year. She is always looking for convenient bags and stuff to take with her when she's going out with my brother. And yeah, I'm not like particularly super interested in sewing, but it is a skill that I have honed over the years, and I participated in a lot of sewing classes through my 4-H, like I said, when I was homeschooled. So that being said, I do have some knowledge about sewing. I did make my own curtains. I've made some of my own clothes. Not for a long time, honestly. This was the most recent sewing project that I had done, but it is something that I made in the last year, and sewing is always a good skill to have for mending, and if you need to make curtains or something like that, it is kind of a good skill to have. So I do know how to sew, and I did make that, but it's not like my favorite activity in the world. I just haven't been making a lot of art recently, and usually I would probably be able to say like, oh, I made this art piece in the last year, because I really, really like making art, and I used to spend a lot more time doing that, but I just haven't been inspired to really create art recently. So that is like the most artsy thing that I've actually completed. I've started many projects, but it's not really fun to sit here and show you a half-finished art project, you know? All right, second to last question is question number 8. It's tell us something you think about often, maybe while staring out of windows. So the thing that I have been thinking about the most recently and staring out of windows thinking about is interior design and planning out my future bookshelves and my future office space, because my fiance and I have been looking at housing situations since I am moving in with him in November. We've been trying to figure out where we're gonna be living and how that's all gonna be working. So of course I am thinking a lot about my potential office space that I'm gonna have and how I wanna decorate things and the color palette, and way planning ahead past what I should be, because we're not even at a point where we like own a house. But of course, I am a planner and I have to think about the color scheme and everything before it officially happens. So that's what I've been kind of dreaming about the most recently. Though I will say, for a decent amount of the earlier part of the year, I was definitely staring out of windows thinking about wedding planning and decor for that, and photographers, and just a bunch of stuff related to wedding planning. So definitely those two things have been the most staring out of windows type of thoughts that I've had. Because I feel like usually when I'm just staring out of windows thinking, it's usually something practical. It's not even something like totally unrealistic or daydreamy. It's like maybe unrealistic for the current time period, but it's always something practical, or like, what should I do about this? Or how is this gonna be planned? And I don't know. It sounds really boring when I'm saying it like that, but that's just like where my brain goes when I'm not thinking about other things. So yeah. And then the final question is, what's something that's your favorite, but make it oddly specific? So, okay, here's the thing. I find myself really excited about random specific things, but I really don't remember them unless they're coming up in context. And I've asked my mom to help me with this, and she really couldn't come up with anything oddly specific either. I feel like if you were just following me around in my life, you would find a lot of things that I'm just really excited about for no reason, but I literally don't remember them after the fact. I feel like I only remember them when I see it and I'm like, this random thing is the most exciting thing ever in my life. And then I just forget. But one thing that I've been thinking about recently with all of the house finding things is trees. I live in a place right now with my family where our yard does not have any trees. It is a distinctly treeless environment that I live in. And there are trees around, but they're not in our yard. And at my childhood home, there was a wonderful, magnificent, what I call the climbing tree, but a tree that had a lot of branches low to the ground. So you could very easily just step up and climb up into the tree. And I'm not somebody who's gonna sit there and try to figure out how to climb a tree that's branches are really, really high up and difficult to climb. I'm not that skilled at tree climbing. I need a tree that has branches that are low to the ground that I can just step up into and just sit and read. Because that was a favorite activity of mine when I was a kid. Those are my favorite kinds of trees. And anytime I see one in someone's yard or anytime I see one during house hunting situations, I'm always extremely, extremely excited about the tree. So I of course hope that my future home has a tree like that I can just casually perch in and read a book. But it's very random and oddly specific, so at least it fits this prompt. But yes, trees like that are my favorite. So on that very oddly specific note, that is the end of the anything but books tag. Thank you for indulging me in talking about unbookish related things. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.